Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Jett. So a lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, you have Jett trying to track down Frank. Turns out he was in this place for his disability being paralyzed. There was a worker there named Roland that was taking care of him. Roland happens to not be there, and Roland's the best way to get to Frank. I love that whole thing where Jett's just like, oh yeah, like, can I get that particular aide's name? And the supervisor, her name's Madison, is kind of making things difficult. All of nowhere, it's like, she's like, what are you looking at? And Jett's like, you don't have any cameras. It's like, why would we? And then she slaps shit on me, like, oh, it kind of caught me off guard. And she's like, what? And she's like, don't focus on that, focus on the desk, okay? And then it ends up like slapping her again, and she's like, the fact of the matter is, I don't want to hurt you, just give me the information I need. And she gets the information. She's like, okay, now press your face against the wall, and it's like, basically gets her file. It's like, Madison, if you let Roland know ahead of time, I will know, and I will come to your place. She's like, so don't do that, but you can call someone, just give me 30 seconds before you do that. Also, like, thank you, have a good day, and just leaves. I just like Jett's personality a lot. She ends up going to Roland's place and finding Blair shot. So you kind of feel bad for him a little bit. It's interesting, a lot of the conversation I thought was kind of fascinating. In particular, it's like, how did Frank get you on the job? And Blair was like, he didn't. It was just a coincidence. It is, when you break it down, it's like, oh, you just happen to be working with Frank, and you just happen to get on the same job that I was going to be on. So I think she was probably thinking that there was more to it, that maybe he had contacts with like Bessick and set that whole thing up. There's still some little part of my brain that thinks like that, but the fact is, Blair even says it, like, no, like, I just happen to be, with Sweeney, and the fact of the matter is, like, when I found out about you, when we met and found out that you were on a job, it was like, holy crap. I called him and like, guess you would not believe who I ended up running into. So it's just mainly because of Blair's big mouth that things kind of played out this way. I even love him being like, I didn't want to do it. Frank can be very persuasive. The fact is, I was like, nah, man, I can't do Jett like that. Not Jett. See, like I said, you actually feel bad for him. He's like, also, could you like tape his arms, because he was like, I don't want to die like a dog. Because he's like, oh, can you you get me help or anything? And she's like, it's like, why would I tell you anything? Because you're just gonna end up killing me. She's like, honestly, I won't have to. You're not gonna make it. He's like, you gonna call me an ambulance or something? She's like, no. So matter of fact about it and everything. So like I said, you actually feel bad for him. He's just, he's like, I'm a fuck up, and I just put myself in this situation. I was like, oh, he's dead. And Jett walks away. Literally, his final words, what does your pussy taste like? I'm like, what? And she responds, summer. I'm like, the craziest final words anyone has ever said in television history, I believe. Probably just cinema history in general. I'm like, why are those your final words? Maybe it's just because Blair's always kind of had a thing for Jett, but like, maybe we bang it out one day, and maybe he was just curious about it. I don't know. I love that she's cleaning up the blood, and she's finding out about Alice. Alice ran into another girl. Her nose is bleeding. Like, it's not a bad thing, but it's like, she's a little freaked out, so you might want to come get her. Jett's like, she's okay, right? So, like, Jett's literally in the middle of stuff, and I love that. She's just like, okay, I'll get Alice, because they try to contact Maria, but they can't. So, all right, I'm coming. I love the whole Jackie and Josie situation. For one, it's like Josie's reading all the text messages between Junior and Bobby. She's talking about, how Junior's like this hip-hop poet, and Bobby's talking all this dirty stuff, like the back and forth between them. And I love her being like, I know I don't talk enough dirty stuff when it comes to us. I'm not very good at it. But she's like, you know what? Going forward, I'm going to text you of something filthy once every day. It's just like, it's so interesting to get this insight into their relationship. I love it. I was also interesting, too, is a whole conversation about Jett, where she was like, oh yeah, you're threatened by her, aren't you? And it's like, why would I be, do I have a reason to be threatened? It's just, and it's also at the same time, it's like, don't do stuff with your wife that you would do with me. Just don't do that. This is interesting, because this is the first time, like, because we now know his wife's name's Helen. First time she's ever been brought up. I also think it's kind of interesting we never see. I wonder, will we ever see her? I just think that's kind of fascinating in itself. I'm like, I'm curious. I'm also curious, like, how that, I mean, once again, it's the whole thing of, like, your partners, you work together long enough, that relationship turns into something, so it's probably not something they'll ever deep dive into, like, Jackie and Josie, but nevertheless, I love Josie's about to do her thing, and then you have Jett getting in the car and be like, yeah, sorry for interrupting, hi, Josie. Even the fact is, like, oh yeah, it's a good thing Jackie's such a terrible liar, because at least you know where you stand with him. It's like, oh yeah, Blair's dead in there too, to the gut. Fact of the matter is, I just came here to give you guys a heads up. No pun intended. It's just like, and I just love it. Josie's like, I can't stand her. She really hates Jett. And the whole thing just makes Jackie laugh, because it's like, maybe there's some truth to the whole you being threatened by your situation. It's kind of funny. She gets Phoenix as kind of a babysitter while, Maria's away. It's like, hey, I'll pay off that $12,000 you owe to your brother. Just kind of do something for me, because obviously she's tracking down Frank. It's interesting, though. I mean, because we also got a little flashback to Frank, too, like 10 years ago. It's interesting. Frank is actually the one who gave her nickname Jett, which was kind of interesting. It seems like her godfather, was it Dalton or something like that? It seems like the dude's a big deal. Like, I'm interested to dive into that, like, who he was. It's like, oh, he was someone at one point in time. It makes you wonder because I guess she gained a reputation on her own, but for him to kind of bring that up, it's kind of like at one point in time he was, so I want to know that basically you are something all on your own. But I wonder, does Charlie know that about her? Do most people know about Jett like that? Or is it a situation of like, oh no, your reputation precedes you as just being the badass that you are? I'm curious, But kind of going back to it present day, the whole situation with Frank, she's, breaking into his place and everything. And, Frank ends up bringing up an interesting conversation where it's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I had Blair shoot at you. He's like, I was just so angry, because he was under the impression that it was Jett who put him in this situation, paralyzed him. But Jett was like, yeah, that wasn't me. So it's like, begs the question, who was it? You don't think it was Jackie, do you? Maybe. Well, I mean, I wonder why he was under the impression that she did do this. Maybe because she was in the area at the time. Like, he never saw who did it, but maybe Jett was, like, one of the few people there. So he's wondering, like, or maybe it's like, oh, I gave you motive to want to do it to me. So maybe that's why he says that. I also love, he's like, can I ask you a question? She's like, as long as it's not how my pussy tastes. And he's like, yeah, that is a question that would be interesting to ponder. But he asked if she's the one that did that. But it's so interesting that he was kind of apologetic like that at the end. But it's like, in the end, he was kind of stuck in a situation, and he's like, could you, finish what you didn't start? And she kills him. And you see, I guess it's just in general, I don't think Jett is keen on taking people's lives, but the fact of the matter is just maybe there's something there where it's kind of like, she actually kind of felt bad about killing Frank. I mean, it was a mercy killing, I guess, to a certain extent, because that's what he wanted, but it just, I don't know, you just see it in her eyes like it just bothered her, So, got the money, ended up paying off Phoenix, which Phoenix loved the whole experience, because it's like hanging out, being paid to hang out with your kid is awesome and everything. I'm like, yeah. And Phoenix no longer has to work for her brother, so she can do what she said before. She could go back to school, because she was even like, I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do. It's like, yeah, you take the money, you pay off your brother. She's like, yeah, but it's just that thing of like, yeah, like my life is gonna be ahead of me, and it's just like, holy crap. It'd be pretty dope to see, we could see Phoenix probably pop around a lot more, especially because Maria's condition is getting worse and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll probably potentially check on that more next episode maybe, but obviously for now she's going to be hanging around Alice, because obviously Alice likes her a lot. Once again, it just seems like when you look at Jett's reaction with her interactions with Alice, it almost seems like she's not your typical parent, so it just seems, I don't know, it's not like I'm trying to judge her, like it's just like she still acts like she doesn't really quite know, like, well, she's not a normal parent. Well, what would be considered like an average or normal parent? Like, so she, like I said, certain things just kind of like, she's like, is it really that big of a deal? Okay, sure, bloody nose, I'll come get her, whatever. Because like your guys are making much more of a big deal out of this than even she is. She talks about, because even Alice is like, it doesn't hurt, it just feels weird. And talking about the blood, how it tastes like a penny and stuff like that. So, I don't know, it's just an interesting family is all I can say about that whole situation. And speaking of family, someone tried to make someone working for Sales made a move against Charlie. Benny was there to take him down, but Charlie, calm as a cucumber, still eating his food, got a gun on the table, ready for the dude. I love that whole conversation. And the dude, he's like, so what's your name? And he's like, fuck you. He's like, fuck you. And he's like, yeah, I figured it was something like that. It's like, your mom, blah, 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 this and that. It's like, when she shit you, she's like, oh, what's this piece of shit? I'll name him fuck you. So tell me, fuck you. And I just love that he went along with it too. He's like, the fact of the matter is, fuck you. The fact is that you ruined my potential going to this golf place that I like. And he swings a golf club at him. But obviously, he's like, but lucky for you, the renewal was happening in a week. So tell me this, fuck you. Just like I said, I just love that he was kind of having fun with it. It's a whole conversation of like, oh, Salas is going to end you and your family, and it's like, maybe not. Fact of the matter is, maybe I'm just flesh and bone, here one day, gone the next. It's like, you are so laissez-faire about this. So that's just so interesting to see that side of Charlie. But I also appreciate, like, I'm wondering about the whole Junior thing, him putting drops in his eyes. Was that supposed to be like, oh, so dad doesn't realize I'm high right now? Or is that more so about the fact is of like, oh, so I look more sympathetic? Dad, oh my God, he looks so concerned. It's like, you seem like you're overacting. Like, you're trying too hard to be like, oh, I'm so worried about you, Dad. And obviously, like, Junior actually gets put on the job of looking into the gold bars that were stolen, the whole Jett job. So that's definitely going to be interesting, considering the fact of the matter is Jett is currently working with the police, you know, to try and take Junior down. Now Junior's going to be investigating, and that's going to lead into the whole situation of like, oh, you're working for Bessick, so then it's probably going to turn into a thing of like, we have to take Junior down now before he ends up telling Charlie anything about, you know, what Jett's up to. So that's an interesting thing in itself. But it seems like, you know, obviously Junior constantly screws up, because he was like, when it's like, oh, we can't have you out there with, you know, loose cannon on a loose like that. And he's like, I'm sorry, Dad, I screwed up this one time. But Charlie was like, no, I'm not referring to you as a loose cannon. I'm referring to Salas as the loose cannon. So, which is interesting because, like, once again, this all started because Charlie believes Salas killed was it judge that was under his payroll? I think that's what that dude was, if I remember correctly. But we know that it was Charlie, which that conversation takes an interesting, you know, turn later on. Side note, once again, showing you just how power trippy he can be. Junior, he's telling Bobby, like, yeah, quit your job. It's like, no, I you know, basically he wants to have something for himself. It's like, but you don't have to do anything. You don't have to work. Just sit here, kind of basically, you can swim all day. Just basically keep your body in shape for me, and you can read a little, you know, and it's just kind of like it almost seems like Bobby's his personal toy. I mean, to be fair, we've seen already how he treats Bobby, so it's kind of like, I'm the man. Like, once again, even Charlie said himself, it's like, I don't even think it's about sex. I think it's just literally about power. And just like for him, it's just, oh, I want to have someone that can be my toy. Maybe in his own twisted mind, he does think it's love. It just seems like you're just using Bobby. But then, like, you know, there's a whole conversation between Evans and Junior. I'm assuming that conversation has to deal with Charlie, because the whole thing of like, okay, if you want to make a move, don't wait for Bessick, because Bessick doesn't want to have anything to do with. He thought it over, but he says no, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So it's like, okay. Because remember, like, basically Bessick was like, oh, I need you to keep an eye and let me know about Charlie. I wonder, was that, at the time it seemed like that might have been about him. He wants to make a move against Charlie, but I'm assuming he was doing that for Junior's sake, because I do believe Junior is trying to replace his dad. So that's, you know, hence why he's trying to do this whole Salas thing. He was hoping that Salas and his dad would either wipe each other out, or at the very least Salas would kill his dad, but obviously that's not going to be the easiest thing. So that's why he's still trying to play the role of the concerned son and everything. Obviously, they give him the photos that Bessick was using to blackmail. It's like, oh, like, these there are more copies out there probably. It's like, it doesn't seem like there are. It seems like Bessick is trying to be like, hey, I'm a man of my word type of thing. But what's also interesting is obviously you have Junior threatening Evans, being like, oh, I could cut your balls off and send them to him as a message. And then Evans was like, I can make a counterpoint. You don't know where to send them. And that pissed, you know, because Junior seems like, you know, once again, power trippy. It's like, don't disrespect me, I'm the man, you know. And is Evans just not giving him the time of day? But it's so interesting. But then, like, he pulls out a card that reads exactly what was going to go down. I guess the whole point is supposed to represent, like, Charlie's not that, well, Charlie Jr. isn't that special, in the sense that, like, you were super predictable to the point I literally knew exactly what you were going to do. Like, apparently Bessick knew, like, oh, you were going to threaten my life, and for me to say these exact lines, word for word. So it's like, maybe that's kind of showing that like Bessic has a better handle on this situation than you do or something. That's what I took it as. So that's very interesting. I'm very interested to see where, like I said, when those two storylines collide, when like, oh yeah, Junior looks into the whole Gold Bard situation, which we now know is connected to Bessic. Which I'm sitting here talking like this, but I'm under the impression acting like he didn't know that. I mean, if he's working with Bessic, more so it seemed like he might have been forced to, but maybe that was just kind of an insurance policy that they've always been working together, at least for a while. But nevertheless, it could be a situation of he already knows I doubt, because I feel like, because he probably doesn't even know Jett's involvement in stuff like this, probably because, like, Bessic probably compartmentalizes stuff, like who's working with him. He doesn't give everyone the full picture, essentially, so... Because he probably doesn't even know that Junior works for... Because the only reason why Jett knows that is because of Rufus, so it's like, maybe Bessic doesn't know that she knows that. Either way. Obviously, there's also the interesting thing about the fact is that Jett has to deal with her parole officer, like, she has to come fake her job as, like, a bartender or whatever. And he shows up, and she shows up to work, and he's like, oh, it's funny, because I came back a couple nights ago, and you weren't here, and it's like, okay. Evans happens to be there, and Evans is like, okay, if you need, you don't have to worry about your parole officer. It's like, wait, what did you do? He's like, don't worry about it, it's been taken care of. It's like, oh, that, and once again, Jett doesn't want people dying. Like, it sucks when people die. Like, even though Blair screwed her over, I don't think she would have killed him. But the fact of the matter is just, sadly, things played out that way. And I think for her, she doesn't want people... Yeah, it's like he's just some parole officer doing his job. I just got mixed up in a situation where I have to work for you guys. And that's what she was trying to say to Evans. It's like, I need you to talk to Bessic. He needs to rearrange this. We got to have a new deal. Necessarily just kind of change everything. Because I can't just like drop everything and work for him like at the drop of a dime. It's like literally this situation played out because he wouldn't let me choose my own crew. Things would have gone smoothly if you had just let me do that. But it's like, no, things aren't played out the way they're supposed to, so, well, they're like the way Bessic wants them to, so she needs a little more wiggle room with a lot of stuff. Obviously, she needs to know ahead of time how many other jobs she's doing. More so than anything, she's also trying to find out any information about Bessic that she can, because she wants to take him down, because she's still gunning for him for killing Rufus, so... So there's that. So that's definitely going to be interesting. Evans does admit to her, it's like, I don't know how Bessic what he will say or what he will do. Like, that's the thing. He's like a phenomenon. It's like, you never know quite when it's, coming ahead of time, So that's interesting. And then there's also the Benny situation. That just fascinates me. Benny's outside of Rosalie's place, and it's like she comes and sits in the car, and he's like, oh, she's like, I'm Rosalie. It's like, you're Benny. And he's like, how do you know that? And I'm like, what the hell is that? Oh, she's not really there. He was fantasizing. It's like, Benny, your situation, your storyline's getting weirder and weirder, bro. Like, the fact of the matter is you're obsessed with this woman. He's like, I'm gonna count to 10, you're gonna cut on your lights. And she doesn't. And he's talking about, he's named Benny after his grandfather. And what was it? He'd love to go to France or something like that. Or Paris, whatever the case may be. And he's like, good night, Rosalie. And drives away. It's like, dude, okay, I don't know whether he thinks like everything's just gonna, like, at least he's fantasizing about things just magically working out. And she finds out you're the person that kidnapped her, kind of put in her position. I don't think she's gonna be so fallen in love with you and smitten with you like you are with her. So, like I said, it's an interesting storyline. I'm interested to really see where that goes. I'm curious to see where everything in general takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.